Oh, so good to see you all. Uh, this is our Gumpa Rapso class. We're going to begin with some motivation prayers. This is our first class of the next unit. We do 8 classes at a time, usually, as you remember, and then we take a break and then another 8 classes. So, Richard, if you'd like to put up the prayers, if you have them. Sangye Churang Soki Chognam La Jangchu Padu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunin Gipe Sognam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Trupa Sho. If you can a little larger, Richard, I don't know how it goes. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye Churang Soki Chognam La Changchu Padu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sugnam Gi Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Sho. By offering this ground, so we imagine either with our hand mudra or a mandala plate or just complete visualization, by offering this ground, this foundation, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm. So already at this point, when we're visualizing this, we're not thinking of it as an ordinary realm. Not when we say visualize as a Buddha realm, doesn't necessarily mean we're meditating on the mandala as empty of inherent existence, but with pure view, as though it's a Buddha realm. As due to that, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. And then a request, O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. So the significance there is requesting the Guru as Dharmakaya with the powers of the Buddha's omniscient mind, knowing the needs of sentient beings, of those that are to be subdued or trained, that are not yet Buddhas, uh, sending down or providing exactly in accordance with what they need, the profound and vast teachings. Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niryatayami. I offer this precious mandala to the Guru. Okay, so good to see you. We're going to do a little meditation as usual. So relax your body. I like to tell myself to relax my mind, meaning I don't have to multitask. I don't have to think about anything else other than the subject of the meditation, which is being mindful of our respiration. try to keep a little mental spy active as though sort of off in the corner of your mind, watching that you're not diverting energy into other thoughts. This doesn't just become mechanical, like breathing in and breathing out, sort of vaguely aware of that, but mainly thinking about something else. Not that way. Because the object we're being mindful of is relatively easy to perceive. Not only does this meditation calm the mind so that we can replace the previous, perhaps confused thoughts with Dharma motivation, besides that, it's a training in mindfulness. Later, if we want, when we encounter problematic situations, if we meditate on selflessness, on emptiness, try to keep that in mind in our activity as we're going about, listening to the news of war, just navigating the streets of your city. You'll have trained your mindfulness such that you can keep bringing back to mind, if you lose it, the meaning of emptiness. Everything that is appearing to us is empty of inherent existence. Now bring your attention, your mindfulness, to the mental consciousness itself. Not your ear, not your eye, not your nose, not your taste, not your tactile consciousness. All of them inform the mental consciousness, so to speak. We know the mental consciousness originally through its contents, the thoughts, the appearances, the emotions, the delusions, the virtuous states of mind. All of this content abides, arises from, and absorbs back into the clear light nature of the mind, conventional clear light nature of the mind. The mind itself is that which is clear in knowing. So here we're trying to be mindful of the clarity side, the first word, clear in knowing. like a vast, clear sky. When the thoughts are subdued, the clarity of the mind appears like emptiness, like uncompounded space, as a non-affirming negation, just a vacuity. The appearance is a similar, or maybe you could say the same, as the appearance of emptiness or the appearance of uncompounded space. But because we engaged in this appearance through negating the obstructive quality of the mind, the hypothetical obstructive quality of the mind, which is not there, the mind offers no obstacle to the arising of thought within it, to the dismissal of thought, absorbing back into it. Because of that analysis that brings us this appearance of vacuity, we are actually realizing, or having, approach to realizing, this clarity of the mind. I think for a second, if you have that clarity, mere vacuity, the lack of any obstruction to the arisal of thought and so forth. Now think to yourself, all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, although it appears in post meditation to conceptual mind, to even to our sense consciousnesses, all phenomena appear to be inherently existent. They are actually empty of that. And see if you can, just by simply changing your logical reasoning, all these phenomena are empty of inherent existence, rather than the mind is empty of any obstructing contact. Imagine that what you're experiencing is not only the conventional Buddha nature, but the ultimate Buddha nature, the emptiness of your mind. The conventional clear light nature of the mind is also called the developmental Buddha nature. And it indicates to us at the beginning, before we even understand about emptiness and the advantages it holds, the conventional clear light nature of the mind indicates that we can develop all good qualities. They're adventitious. All of the states of mind are adventitious. They come about because of causes and conditions. Even our faulty minds, all of them can be eliminated from the root, so they'll never come back again. Which should give a sense of joy if you think about that. The same kind of joy and bliss that you imagine during a tantric empowerment, when the crown is put on your head or the vase water is poured on your head or whatever. A mental bliss. I can become enlightened I can become fully autonomous. To recognize such a fact is due to this auspicious moment. Here we are as a human. If we were here as a dog or cat or a preta or some other denizen of samsara, we might not be able to understand the significance of this life of leisure and endowment that the Buddha called this auspicious moment. We can use this to achieve nirvana, perfect peace for ourself, or as the Buddha advised, to strive for enlightenment through developing bodhicitta. The advantages of bodhicitta as a cause are that it's one of the greatest purifiers of negative deeds when we create negative karma, and one of the greatest accumulators of virtuous karma, conventional bodhicitta. This is a thought that views sentient beings with compassion, wants them to be free of that, and sees that the only way that we can bring that about ourself is by ourself becoming enlightened. So charging that desire for enlightenment, infusing it with that purpose, I must achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings, all of whom are more precious than a wish-fulfilling gem, which could fulfill all of our wishes this lifetime for wealth, for power, for beauty, for companionship, for love, whatever. But the bodhicitta is far more, excels far more in its ability to bring results than the wish-fulfilling gem, because with bodhicitta, we can actually achieve the goals of future lives, infinite lives in the future, by achieving the Bodhisattva bhumis, or liberation, or Mahayana liberation, or enlightenment. To achieve enlightenment, having developed bodhicitta, we have to practice the 6 perfections. We have to develop especially the perfection of wisdom. And in order to achieve its goal, enlightenment itself, bodhi, we have to accumulate the 2 collections of merit and wisdom, which are explained in the Buddha's Prajnaparamita Sutras, which were commented on and explained by Nagarjuna in his fundamental wisdom, which was then explained by Buddhapalita, great founder of the Prasangika, criticized by Bhavaviveka, but then again reevaluated, made valuable again by Chandrakirti in his Prasanapada and Majjhimakavatara, which Lama Khapa wrote a commentary to the Majjhimakavatara Bhasham, the auto commentary by Chandrakirti, called Gompa Rapsil, which we're studying. I think I'm going to participate in the class today in order to accumulate the 2 collections of merit and wisdom, which are explained. In order to understand how to develop those collections, I'm going to concentrate, I'm going to listen to the words contemplate their meaning, try to get the correct meaning. And once that's achieved, to hold that in mind for some time to develop the wisdom of meditation. So the wisdom of hearing, the wisdom of contemplation, the wisdom of meditation. I'm going to participate in order to become enlightened for the sake of all mother sentient beings. Okay. How is your meditation? Okay. Not sure. Okay. No one ever likes to volunteer on their meditation. So before we begin the recitation of the foundation of good qualities, I'm not sure, Richard, do you have that on hand? Okay. Before we do that, um, Doris, I'm going to ask Doris if she hasn't already. Oh, she has. There you go. There is a PDF that you can download in the chat, I guess. There we go. Do you see that? So the first verse of the foundation of good qualities, which is what we recite at the beginning of any of the 8 class units, the first class. The first verse is about what? Anyone know? The foundation of good qualities? Off the top of your head. What is it, Nadine?
It is about a guru.
It's about the guru, right? So here is a verse that comes in Lama Chopa, the Guru Puja, which most of you know, right? Jeremy, do you know the Guru Puja? Lama Chopa? You're not sure.
Yes, I do, Venerable George. Thank you. Sorry.
So that we're on the same page. So just before the request, when we say you are the Lama, Kyoni Lama, Kyoni Yiram, Kyoni Kandro, Chokyongte, that requesting verse, just before that, the last verse of requests to the guru in various guises is this verse. Dibme lenke gawe ropadang, yerme tenyo kunkyab kungidak, tokma dadel kunzang dondamgi, jangshub semngu kyula soadeb. So you can see various translations. Here's a translation from the book that the Jinpa edited from the teachings of His Holiness on Lama Chopa. I think it's called The Union of Bliss and Emptiness. So if you can check the Dalai Lama's commentary there, but he translated it there, unobscured, inseparable from the play of simultaneous bliss, the nature of all things, pervading everything in motion and at rest, Samantabhadra, free of beginning or end, actual ultimate bodhicitta, I make request to you. So this is a verse the Dalai Lama mentions often when he's teaching. Here it's identifying the guru as ultimate bodhicitta. What is, in this context, what is ultimate bodhicitta, Mikhail? Do you know? Jangshub Semgo Kyula Soa Deb. Dondamgi Jangshub Semgo. So, Kyo, you who are actual Dondamgi Jangshub Sem, ultimate bodhicitta, I make this request. What is ultimate bodhicitta here?
It's the realization of emptiness in someone who has bodhicitta.
Right. Generally, so sutra, from the sutra side, from the tantra side, it would mean a union of bliss and emptiness that is realizing emptiness. So there's slightly different connotation there. So the FPMT version, the PDF from FPMT that sometimes we use, translates it this way, almost exactly the same, unobscured. So this is referring to the omniscient mind's omniscient wisdom is unobscured by any faults, inseparable from the play of simultaneous joy. They only changed the word bliss to joy there. Pervading everything in motion and at rest. So that means all the animate world. We say animate means moving, right? So that refers to that. And at rest refers to the vessel world. So that means that, the omniscient mind, the ultimate bodhicitta of our ultimate guru pervades all the minds of all sentient beings, and all of the vessel world, everything that exists. Both texts say the nature of all things. I think it could be the source of all things. Kunki Tak, the Dalai Lama mentions that in some of his commentaries. Free from beginning or end. That means that this nature of the mind has existed from the very beginning of the beginningless time until the very end. Samantabhadra, here it says all good. Samantabhadra, means kuntu sangpo, means always good. And what is always good? The realization of emptiness. So all good, actual, ultimate bodhicitta. I make request to you. So this is identifying the absolute guru, the ultimate guru, as, first of all, as an example, our gurus, their omniscient minds, that's what we're making request to, that have ultimate bodhicitta. Their mind is in that state of ultimate bodhicitta. Like the word Lailita Vistara, the text of the Buddha's lives, sort of within that state playing out various guises. But then finally, ultimate bodhicitta means the ultimate bodhicitta that we desire to develop in our own mind, and taking refuge in that and requesting that, reminding yourself to be mindful of emptiness in all your deeds, because that is your guru. When we talk about resultant state as opposed to the causal state. The causal state is the guru in front, the actual guru's ultimate bodhicitta. But then the resultant state is that we become Buddha ourselves, and that we have that ultimate bodhicitta that we depend on. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you first. And Richard's going to put up, when he gets a chance, the verses from the Yondan Shirgirma, Foundation of Good Qualities. Hi, Rachel. Good to see you. No. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure guru. Correct devotion to him or her is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely on them with great respect. So the sense here is, when we just say what we identify as the guru, whenever we are serving the guru, trying to practice guru devotion, which is that word in the last line there, rely on, devote ourselves to them, to the guru, or practice guru devotion. Whenever we do that, to try to keep that in mind, that practice of guru devotion, which is so subtle and so profound, to try to see them as ultimate bodhicitta, so as to not see faults in whatever they do, if they scold us, whatever they do, to see that as somehow a necessary blessing to us. Okay, then continuing. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, this auspicious moment, is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that takes its essence unceasingly day and night. Takes the essence, like the swan that can put its beak into the pond, a pond within which you've poured some cream, some milk, and it can take a beak full of that and let all the water and the dregs come out the bottom and just keep the essence of that. So to take the essence of this lifetime means not to be disturbed by attachment to the temporary appearances of this life, the ups and downs. This life is impermanent, is perishable as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes, and that after death, just like the shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Have to go up a little. And you can use the arrow keys on your, I think, on your keyboard, Richard, if I'm not mistaken, to move the. How are you doing? You're having some problem there. There we go. After death, just like the shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this law of cause and effect, the laws of karma. Please bless me to be always careful to abandon even the slightest negativity and to accomplish all virtuous deeds. So understanding that karma is definite, that it increases. We can never experience an effect without having created the cause, and that it's never lost. Because it increases, we want to accomplish everything, even the smallest virtues, and to abandon even the smallest faults. By seeking samsaric pleasure, it is the door to all suffering. Samsaric pleasures are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. So this is still the mind of the individual of, this is now the mind of the individual of intermediate scope, wishing for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So this is through having, but that pure thought, the motivation to achieve liberation, and aided by the mindfulness, alertness, and great caution to keep the vows. So the vows are meant to prevent us from creating even small negative karma. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migrating beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migrating beings. So rather than saying fallen into, which is literally what it means, lungwa means, like when we talk lungze, the begging bowl, is that which the things fall into. Here it's more in the sense, it's not as though sentient beings have suddenly fallen into samsara. They've been emerged, maybe emerged in, is that the right word? Cyclic, the sea of samsara. So have all migrating beings. Just if I'm emerged in that, if I'm situated in that, so are all mother migrating beings. The word mother giving the clue here to train in bodhicitta out of the desire to free our mothers from that. Even if I develop mere bodhicitta, but don't practice the three types of morality. So mere bodhicitta, or here's the only bodhicitta. This means not, the thought that just wants to achieve enlightenment, but is not doing anything to get there. It's not practicing the three types of morality of the bodhisattvas. Even if I develop mere bodhicitta, but don't practice the three types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects, to multitasking, all of your distractions are pacified, reduced, and correctly analyzing the meaning of reality within that concentration, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Then, having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. This is a verse that's often recited at the beginning of tantric empowerments, reminding ourselves of that. We have to train in the general path before we engage in the more esoteric path of Vajrayana. Then, at that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is to keep or to observe the pure vows and samayas. Keeping pure vows and keeping our samayas, our promises. As I have become completely convinced of this, firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the generation stage and the completion stage, which are the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. In that way, may the gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it along with me have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. I think this is a prayer that some of us have had in previous lives. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, or the magnificence of the Dharma, by completing the qualities of the stages and paths. Sadam Lamgi Yunden, having completed that which arises from those stages and paths, the good qualities, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay, thank you for that, Richard. So good to see you again. How is everyone doing? Okay. Anyone have any question before we begin? KT, what's up?
Thanks. And great to see you again and be with everybody. The 3 Mahayana moralities, is that's abandoning the non-virtues, cultivating virtue, and for the benefit of all beings? Is that, just had to review that in my
Yeah.
mind. Is that correct?
Who can recite those? Don, can you recite what the 3 Mahayana moralities are? You're muted, of course. There you go.
I seek your blessings to enact the perfection, moral discipline, acting virtuous deeds, that transgressing the bounds of the bodhicitta, vajrasattva, gently growls. I think that's 3 of them, if I got them all.
So usually, what do we say? Abandoning non-virtue. So that's the usual meaning of morality in the Hinayana, to abandon non-virtue. But in the Mahayana, the two additional ones are to collect all virtuous dharmas. So that has various meanings. It means collecting virtuous karma for the realizations, collecting virtuous qualities like erudition, knowledge of the sutras, being able to explain them to others. So accumulating virtuous qualities and benefiting sentient beings is the third one. So we say abandoning negativities, accumulating all virtuous qualities, and benefiting sentient beings. And there are various ways that these overlap, but that, to benefit sentient beings means actually to engage in those activities.
Thank you. Can I ask one more quick question?
Yeah, go on.
This on Guru devotion. There was a series on, I think it was Netflix, on the Buddha that was out there a while ago, maybe produced in India. But Geshe Dado mentioned this. He was a Geshe from Drepung. He said he watched that during the pandemic, and then the episode where the Buddha becomes enlightened, he said he just started crying, and it was very meaningful to him. And so I thought of that while we were reciting the foundation of good qualities. And I'm wondering if anyone knows where to find that series. I don't believe it's on Netflix anymore, but it reminded me of that story, and thought maybe I need to watch that to enhance my guru devotion if it helps.
Is someone
Wondering if anyone, yeah.
Rachel, were you raising your hand? No, okay.
I also watched it during the pandemic, and it was wonderful, actually. It was quite historically fascinating. But I don't know where to find it now.
Okay.
I'll be on the lookout.
Okay. So anyone else have a question? Mikhail, you okay? Good there in the Nalanda library there. Okay. So we're going to begin again today. We mentioned in the last class on Thupten Jinpa's text, page 272. I may be wrong. It might be 372. I think it's 272. And in the FPMT page 150, in the actual text itself, if you have the EPUB where it doesn't have the page numbers, the paragraph begins here, comma, the use of phenomena such as a mirror image as an analogy involves citing a level of falsehood already established by the world from everyday experience. It is not the sense of falsehood as defined by Madhyamaka that the person has already established that is being cited as an analogy. Okay, so what are we talking about here? So we're still, the sort of the basis of this is in the sixth bhumi. We're talking about realization of emptiness. And in order to prove emptiness of phenomena, that's the first of the two sections. The section on proving the selflessness of persons or the emptiness of persons comes a little bit later. The selflessness of phenomena is proved through the logic in the first verse of Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom. That talks about there's no inherent production from self, from other, from neither, or from both self and other, or from neither self and other, or causelessly. And so we quickly dispatched the logic that disproved or that proved that there's no inherent production from self. We're still on the section trying to prove there's no inherently existent production from other. And that has many, 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 many sections in many ways. Now we've gone into this subsection where Chandrakirti was explaining the necessity to understand emptiness is not just the lack of true existence, but the lack of inherent existence, as a counter to Bhava Viveka's position that phenomena existed inherently on the conventional level. And so that's in this section what we're talking about. And now this section was titled, let's see, rejecting objections raised against such a refutation. So that's the section that we're on. Previously, we were just talking about how although a reflection of your face in a mirror appears to be a real face, and the extremely naive, like parakeets and does, or maybe your dog or cat, might actually think that it's a real face in the mirror. Those who are not naive realize that that's false, but it still arises because of causes and conditions. Something which is false arises from causes and conditions. That can be understood. So that helps in understanding the level of that Madhyamika is talking about. Phenomena are actually appearing in a false way. They appear to be inherently existent, yet they still can function. They still arise from causes and conditions, and they themselves can act as the causes and conditions of further phenomena. This is countering the view of the lower schools that unless phenomena were inherently existent, they couldn't function. They wouldn't arise because of causes and conditions, and they wouldn't have a continuum after that, right? So that's sort of like the context that we're talking about here. We're on the same wavelength? Everyone okay? Stephen? Yeah? Okay. So here, let's read this paragraph again. Thupten Jinpa's translation says here, the use of phenomena such as a mirror image as an analogy, right? So we're using that example of the of reflection in a face in a mirror that ordinary people who are not naive, realize is false. We're using that as an example to make an analogy to how phenomena appear, and if we know that they're false and so forth. Here, the use of phenomena such as a mirror image as an analogy involves citing a level of falsehood already established by the world from everyday experience. So for the world means the non-naive, the worldly beings, they see this, and that's already established for them that there are things like mirror images that are false. It is not the sense of falsehood, in this case, as defined by the Madhyamaka, that the person has already established that is being cited as an analogy. So what is used as the analogy is the commonly worldly understanding that these phenomena are false, the reflection of a face in a mirror. Then continuing, with a reflection perceived as a face, no differentiation whatsoever can be made on the level of appearance itself, saying, this part of the reflection appears as a face, and that part of the reflection does not. Well, he's talking about the face, it's not like the nose doesn't appear to be, false, whereas the face does appear to be false, something like that. That is not the case. It is the entirety of the reflection that appears as the face. Yeah, right. So what is the face? The face is not the ear, the nose, the mouth, the eyebrows, the head, or whatever. the face is that which is imputed upon that collection. It is the entirety of the reflection that appears as a face. So citing this analogy of how, though the entirety of the perception of a face in a mirror does not exist as it appears, there's no contradiction in maintaining that such a reflection arises in dependence on its causes, right? What are the causes of that, the arising of that appearance of the face in the mirror? Well, you have to have the mirror, and you have to move your face in front of it. If your face is not there, your face doesn't appear in the mirror, right? So there are various causes and conditions. Even though it's false, it doesn't contradict the fact that it arises from causes and conditions. So that's an important point. So in the same way, the text continues, Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary continues, in the same way, when a blue object appears as though it were existing by virtue of intrinsic characteristic, inherently existing, no differentiation whatsoever can be made as to which part does and which part does not appear as inherently existent or as existing through inherent characteristics. The whole thing appears to be inherently existent. Furthermore, what is perceived does not exist as perceived in its entirety. Furthermore, what is perceived does not exist as perceived. So how is it perceived? It's perceived to be inherently existent. Remember, that's the viewpoint of the Prasangika. Does the Svatantrika accept that, Stephen?
Well, they say that you would perceive something like a form as inherently existent, but that is how it actually exists.
Right. And they would say that the appearance of true existence doesn't appear to there's no appearance of true existence to the five faculties, right? That's only something that's known by the mental consciousness, or the grasping to the true existence of these phenomena only takes place in the mental consciousness as a conceptual mind. Okay, so reading again, in the same way, when a blue object appears as existing by virtue of its intrinsic characteristic, no differentiation whatsoever can be made as to which part does and which part does not appear as existing through intrinsic characteristics. Furthermore, what is perceived does not exist as perceived in its entirety. Nonetheless, it can be established that there is no contradiction with the fact that the blue thing is produced from its own causes and that it can produce its own effects. So when it says in the same way, so this is why we're talking about an analogy. The analogy is the face in the mirror, and how even the worldly beings like ourselves can realize that it depends on causes and conditions. In the same way, something that is false, like the appearance of inherent existence, it can be established that there's no contradiction with the fact that the blue thing is produced from its own causes and conditions and can produce its own effect, even though the blue is empty of inherent existence. Follow it? Making sense? Okay. Anyone confused? Rachel, are you confused?
I'm not confused. I had read the wrong section earlier to prepare, and one of the things that came to my mind was wondering if I have missed what inherent characteristics is really referring to. So here it is again here, and it's sort of like this catchphrase, but then I'm not sure that I'm not missing something when I'm thinking about it. So
right. So here the Lama Tsongkhapa is using this terminology. Let's see, where does it come here? In the same way, blue object appears as existing by virtue of its intrinsic characteristics. So that is a synonym, a hypothetical synonym of inherent existence. So I like to use that because that's to me, that's one of the clearest ways. Another theoretical synonym of that is existing from its own side, by its own power. It's also, from the Prasangika point of view, a hypothetical synonym of true existence. True existence also doesn't exist, so you can't say it has any synonyms, but a hypothetical synonym is inherent existence or existing by way of its own characteristics. Here it says, the Tibetan, Dejindu ngombo rangi tsenigi drupa nangwa. Nangwana, when it appears as rangi tsenigi drupa. So that's, we would say, existing by way of its own characteristics. Chimpa translates that as what? By virtue of its intrinsic characteristics. So he takes rang instead of self, he takes it as intrinsic. So all of those are just synonyms for inherent existence. And that's why the bodhisattvas, when they listened to higher bodhisattvas that had heard the teachings many times before, they knew all of these things were referring to the same quality. So here, by virtue of intrinsic characteristic, could be just taken as existing inherently. Does that help, Rachel? Doesn't help. Okay.
No, I meant what does intrinsic characteristic refer to? I've heard that there are the synonyms, the
Right.
hypothetical synonyms, but what is the point of saying intrinsic characteristics? What does that point out to us?
So that means some kind of characteristic which is there in itself, from its own side. So he's translates as intrinsic characteristic. You could say as what did I say? Rangit senigi drupa. Rangit senigi drupa. How did I just translate that a minute ago? I can't remember. Paul, Rangit senigi drupa, how would you translate? Rather than saying intrinsic characteristic.
Established by way of its own character.
Its own character, right? Its own character. So in a grosser sense, Rachel, we talk about Rangitseni, Rangsen, and Chisen in the lower tenets. Rangsen means Rangitseni. So Rangsen means phenomena that have their own specific characteristic, like fire has its own characteristic of being hot and burning, and so forth. Whereas its general characteristic, its chitsen, is shared with many, many other things. Right? So here, the extension of that, using that same kind of terminology, slightly changed as when you get to the Mahayana. When we talk about Rangitseni, that means some kind of characteristic that is exclusive to that particular object, so that its own essence of being a car or a dog or a mug or a tree is there from its own side. Does that help?
That's what I was forgetting. It's almost like the definition of the characteristic that is unique, and that has the defining characteristic, sort of.
Yes, right. That would be a good way of putting it, also defining characteristic. Okay, so now continuing in the text. Now, if one can maintain the standpoint whereby, with all these comments, it gets a little bit confusing. Now, if one can maintain the standpoint whereby, while there is nothing in the mere image that exists as a face as perceived, this does not lead to the mere image becoming non-existent. there is nothing in the mirror image that exists as the face, as perceived. So it's false from the worldly perspective, because it appears to be a face, but it's not a face, so it's false. If you can maintain that and still recognize that that does not, just the fact that it's false doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It exists, you can see it, right? Now, if one can maintain the standpoint whereby, while there is nothing in the mirror image that exists as a face as perceived, this does not lead to the mirror image becoming non-existent. It would then be possible, if you held that standpoint, to uphold the standpoint whereby, although nothing within the entire field of perception of a blue object exists by virtue of intrinsic characteristics as it appears, say any kind of object, you don't even have to take blue, anything that you look at or hear or smell or taste, everything there that is the field of perception seems to exist inherently from its own side, by its own characteristics, as though it's had its own intrinsic or our own characteristics. One can, what was that last verse here? As it appears to, one can definitely still posit the existence of the blue object. So you would have to say, in one sense, it sounds like totally obvious, that although you understand the reflection of the face in the mirror as being false, that doesn't mean that the face is non-existent. Almost sounds, I'm not sure what the right term is. Sounds like intuitively obvious, but it's getting at a separate point here. One can definitely still posit the existence of the blue object is the result of that example. So what is this talking about? This is refuting the lower schools that say if phenomena are not inherently existent, if they're not truly existent, they couldn't exist at all. When I say the lower schools, say the Hinayana schools say that phenomena are truly existent. They don't delve so much into inherently existent, although that does come into it to a certain degree. And the Chittamatra and the Svatantrika are talking about phenomena that are certain phenomena are inherently existent, not all phenomena. Whereas for the Prasangika, no phenomena are inherently existent. So even though phenomena appear to be inherently existent, whereas they are not, that doesn't mean that the blue object doesn't exist. Like the lower tenets would say, unless it was inherently existent, has to be inherently existent. If it's not inherently existent, it can't exist. But still, all of these phenomena that Prasangika posit as being illusory-like, that are appearing to be inherently existent, but are empty of that, they still exist. This kind of clear differentiation, employing refined intellect, oh, I like that, refined intellect, as to how, in relation to form and so on, one distinguishes between the two. And what are the two? This is to be negated, and this is not to be negated. One distinguishes between the two on the basis of the analogy of a mirror image. This kind of clear differentiation, employing refined intellect as to how, in relation to form and so on, one distinguishes between the two. This is to be negated, this is to be negated, this is not to be negated, on the basis of the analogy of a mirror image, is an indispensable aid to finding the middle way view Therefore, we should not be easily contented with our understanding of the role of such an analogy. Not sure, Chimpa's parenthetical phrase there. So here in July 25th in 2002, in one of the summer courses, Geshe Zopa was mentioning about this thing here. So both of our translations, the FPMT translation and Jimpa's translation, also use, I think, indispensable. Is it not? Or does Jimpa say indispensable? This is, yeah, is an indispensable aid to finding the middle way. So what does that mean? That means that one has to, one can't dispense with. What does that mean? You can't leave it out. You need to enter into understanding of this. So Geshe-la, at this point, he was saying, this is indispensable. In the Tibetan, it just says me mi rungwa, but Geshe-la said metu mi rungwa. So mi rungwa means you can't do with, you can't do without. One cannot find the Madhyamaka view without it. This is very important in order to find the Madhyamika view, the Madhyamika understanding. J. Rinpoche, which is how, when Lamas are referring to Lama Tsongkhapa, one of the ways, another sort of synonym, J. Rinpoche says, so this is the very important part. So you should not be easily satisfied. Sim lawa minyenno. Your thought shouldn't be easily satisfied. Don't immediately be satisfied with something that's said. You should analyze it. Unlike that, unlike being easily satisfied and not investigating, you should investigate, analyze, examine how there is no contradiction. So using these examples, the mirror image of your face, how that appears to be a face, but the non-naive, no, it's not a face, yet it still appears, it exists, and it can function. And so the analogy to that, to appearing, let's say, to eye consciousness of some other object, it doesn't always have to be blue. That's just the example that's often given, right? Something appears to be inherently existent, but it's not. Yet, it's not, the fact that it is not inherently existent doesn't preclude the fact that it exists conventionally. Phenomena do exist conventionally, is merely imputed, right? And that it can function. The illusory like horse can carry the illusory like man, and so forth and so on. So Geshe-la said, you should not be easily satisfied. Don't immediately be satisfied with something said. Unlike that, investigate, analyze, examine how there is no contradiction. If this way appears how they act, there's no contradiction if they appear this way and how they actually are, how this is possible to exist and so forth. You have to be able to carefully distinguish with that example. So the example of the mirror. So therefore, not easily doing or accepting, not easily satisfied, that just being easily satisfied without investigating is not correct. Some people think that is easy without checking. Oh yeah, that's easy. But you have to understand the subtlety involved in this analogy. They do that. Say someone says something looks like, sounds like her, then no problem. If asked how or what, then again they don't know, contradicting that. So J. Rinpoche advises careful thinking. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you. So that when Jimpa has said there, on the basis of this analogy of a mirror image, this is an indispensable aid to finding the middle way view. So this analogy of the mirror is very important in the Madhyamika view. Okay. Making sense? Okay. So now we have a quotation from Chandrakirti's own auto commentary to his verses, the Bhasham. While understanding the fact of causes and effects, even in relation to a mere image that has no intrinsic existence. So here now, Chandrakirti is using no intrinsic existence. I think that is he translates that as, I think that's Rangitseni right? I mean, it's Rangshingi, what we call inherent existence. So this just shows that this is another one of the synonyms, or theoretical synonyms. While understanding the fact of causes and effects, even in relation to a mirror image that has no intrinsic existence, what learned person would, simply on the basis of perceiving form, feelings, and so on, that'd be the five aggregates and so on, that means all impermanent phenomena, what learned person would, simply on the basis of perceiving form, feelings, and so on, that are not outside the realm of causes and effects, how could that person determine these to be endowed with intrinsic nature? Therefore, although learned ones perceive these as existing, they have no intrinsic arising. Okay, so that note just refers to the Tibetan pages of the commentary there. Does that make sense? That snippet, the citation? Who would like to summarize it? Okay, I don't see anyone looking at me. Paul's looking at me a little bit. Can you No, you weren't. Okay. I said, people.
I'm looking at the Tibetan.
People looking who wants to summarize that. So while understanding the fact of causes and effects, even in relation to a mirror image and so forth. So the FPNT translation of that. So there is one line that's left out here at the beginning in the auto commentary. It comes at the beginning, but I think Lama Tsongkhapa integrated it into his text. So the first line before everything is all things abide undifferentiated from causes and effects. That's in the Bhasham. And our quotation, the FPMT translation says, although reflections are presented as causes and results that are not inherently existent, reflections are presented as causes and results. Is that the same as what Jimpa says? While understanding the fact of causes and effects, even in relation to a mirror image. So it's not so much saying that, try to understand that in terms of Jimpa's translation there. Although reflections are presented as causes and results that are not inherently existent, due to observing forms, feelings, and so forth. So that means as a result of perceiving impermanent phenomena, which are encompassed in the five aggregates, such as form, feeling, and so forth, those phenomena abiding undifferentiated from causes and results as mere existence, what scholar would knowingly ascertain them to have inherent existence? Therefore, they are observed to exist, but are not produced inherently. That was Venerable Jones' translation. So let's look to Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to that snippet from the Bhasham. He doesn't always quote the Bhasham directly, you know, separately with quotation marks and saying it says this in the commentary, in Chandrakirti's commentary. Sometimes it's just integrated into Lama Tsongkhapa's prose. It's almost sort of reinterpreting what Chandrakirti said. But now Lama Tsongkhapa gives an explanation of that little citation. He said, Chandrakirti thus draws a distinction here between mere existence and intrinsic existence. Did he talk about mere existence? He was talking about intrinsic existence, right? Or inherent existence. Was he talking about mere existence? So
Yeah.
that's sort of,
Joan did.
what did she say? Was it in the quotation?
Yeah, she said, although reflections are presented as cause and results that are not inherently existent due to observing forms, feelings, and so forth, those phenomena abiding undifferentiated from cause and results as mere existence, what scholar would knowingly assert them to have inherent existence?
Oh, you must have a different translation.
It's on page 153 in the PDF.
Yeah, you have an earlier translation. This is one that she went back to Jimpa's translation in the final thing. So it says Yopa Samshiktu Mikbai. Yeah, right. So it's talking about mere there. So what is mere existence? Mikhail, what is mere existence, you know?
Regular existence, conventional existence,
Why is it called mere?
because it is not intrinsic, not a real existence, not ultimate existence.
So you
Just
could say,
Imputed,
say again?
imputed, right?
Yeah, you could say that it is merely imputed, the sense of mereness. It's sort of like airy, you know, vacuous kind of thing. It is merely imputed. That means there's nothing from the side of the basis of imputation already there that you can impute on. It's just merely imputed, put together, the three legs of the tripod, right? Chandrakirti thus draws a distinction here between mere existence, which Prasangika accepts, and intrinsic existence, which Prasangika does not accept. Furthermore, Chandrakirti demonstrated above that things do arise and here he demonstrates there is no intrinsic arising. So he makes a clear distinction between arising and intrinsic arising. So there are indications earlier that phenomena do exist, you know, merely and so forth. So there is mere arising, which would just say arising here. He doesn't add the word mere before arising, and intrinsic arising. Those are different things. One is accepted, one is not accepted. There's no intrinsic production or no inherent production, but there is mere production, which is imputed upon the process and so forth. Without such distinctions, then existing things would exist in their own right, and things that do, so without such distinctions, then things that exist would have to exist in their own right, according to the lower schools. In their own right means inherently. Okay. Without such distinctions, according to the lower schools, if things existed, they would have to be inherently existent. They would exist in their own right. And things that do not exist in their own right, if they were not inherently existent, they would become non-existent. They wouldn't exist. Anything you thought of, if it didn't exist in its own right. So from those lower point schools, that's why they had this big argument with Prasangika. Prasangika says there's no inherent existence, and everyone's their brains are blowing up. If it's not inherently existent, it can't exist, you know, and so forth. In this way, one would fail to transcend the two extremes of reification and denigration, or what could we say, superimposition and deprecation, or something like that. Richard, you're going to remind us to take a break?
You read my mind.
Oh.
Clairvoyant.
I thought there was a card on your forehead that said that. Okay. So let me just read this next paragraph, which is another citation coming right after the other one. I think it's after it. Oh, no, this is from the commentary. This is from Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanzas. Remember, Chandrakirti wrote several commentaries, one of them on his own bhasham and so forth. And on the 60 stanzas on reasoning, he wrote a commentary, and he wrote a commentary on the 400 stanzas by Aryadeva, right? So in that text, and I'm not sure, did I quote what place that is? Yeah, it doesn't say where in the 400 stanzas he is commenting on. Okay, I will check that for discussion group on Monday. So this is a quotation. So it's some commentary on one of the verses of the 400. Do you happen to know, Paul? Do you know which verse this is commenting on? Okay, we can check later. So this Chandrakirti's commentary in that context says, those who propound the existence of real entities, that they are real or truly existent, that would be the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, essentially. They consider things to be existent only so long as they are thought to possess some essence, some nature. If they don't have any essence or nature, they are said, or intrinsic existence or inherent existence. If they don't have that, they are thought, the moment that things are understood to lack an essence, they come to be, for them, utterly non-existent. Right? This is just reiterating what we talked about before. The lower tenets are saying this. For them, such things then become non-existent as the horn of a donkey. I think I was asking the other day, I remember that, Chandrakirti does use the example of the horns of a rabbit sometime. Sometimes he had talked about the horns of a donkey. So they're, I guess that means the ears, right? Mistaking the donkey's ears for horns or something like that. For them, such things become non-existent as the horn of a donkey. They are thus compelled to speak of in such dichotomous terms. So it is difficult for them to satisfy all their expectations. So let me read Jeffrey Hopkins' translation of that verse, which comes in his final exposition on wisdom. Remember that book? Again, I don't have it here right now. That book, most of the second half of it was the beginning of the 6th chapter that we used for a long time. That was what we were using, comparing Jimpa's translation to. So this is in the final exposition on page 93. He says, according to the proponents of true existence. So this is just translating the same paragraph now by Jeffrey Hopkins. According to the proponents of true existence, and then he gives the Sanskrit name of that, as long as there is the existence of the thing established by way of its own entity, so as long as there is the existence of the thing, establishment by way of its own entity also exists like that. So as long as there is the existence of the thing, it's established by way of its own entity, or, inherently existent. When devoid of its own entity, so this is the own entity, ranging ngoo, so that's its own nature, sort of like intrinsic nature, inherent nature that's coming from its own side. Where is it? As long as there is the existence of the thing, establishment by way of its own entity also exists like that. When devoid of its own entity, then for them, the lower schools, because the thing would be non-existent in all ways, like the horn of a donkey, whereby, because of not passing beyond propounding the two extreme views, their manifest assertions are difficult to fit together. Difficult to fit together. So Jimpa translates, it is difficult for them to satisfy all expectation. Quite different translation. Okay, let's take a little break. If you need to get a cup of tea or coffee, or just so what
they are not mine.
Okay, so we're recording just where our discussion is still going on here. Some people have still off to getting their cup of tea, I guess. So KT, what are you saying? What are you doubtful of?
Well, you just shifted my question into a different question, but I was trying to understand on the pure bhumis, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, is that still considered circling in samsara because there are imprints of karma left?
Well, even the
It's
arhats
weird.
have impressions of karma. So those impressions of karma that are left on the mind stream, or let's say the impressions, the imprints of the two different things. The impressions or imprints of karma and the imprints of delusions. So the imprints of the delusions, so even though you have abandoned the seeds of the delusions, you still have the imprints of them, but those imprints can't cause the delusions to rise, but they are obstacles to omniscience, those imprints of the delusion. So among the various obstructions to omniscience are the imprints of the delusions. So those bodhisattvas on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumi still have the imprints of delusions until they become a Buddha, right? Do they have imprints of karma also, Stephen? On the pure bhumis?
Imprints or karmic seeds?
So two different things, right?
Yeah.
Do they have karmic seeds, first of all?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, you don't think they have karmic seeds?
Well, certainly not negative karmic seeds.
Why not?
Well, because they've dispensed with all of the afflictions.
Karmic seeds means the things deeds that were done before, right? That will
Right.
have a karmic result in the future. So they don't have any any negative karmic seeds?
I don't think so, not on the pure boomies, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Where would they disappear? What do you think, Rachel? Is your thumb in front of the camera there? Did you have an opinion about that?
I think that it's the karmic seeds can ripen, but there's not being created anymore, right? There's no more created.
Right. And
seeds,
the negative ones can't ripen because there's not the grasping that would give rise to those. Well, let's say the throwing karma, the karmic seeds of throwing karma can't ripen because at the time of ripening, the bodhisattvas are aware of emptiness and they won't be reborn in the lower realms as a result of those, obviously. And that was true even earlier, right? But there are also the imprints of those karmic seeds on their mind stream. Those are also included in the obstructions to omniscience. Okay, so let's go a little further here. Are we okay? We're back. Paul's still getting his green tea, just to the right temperature, I think. So we read this stanza from the 400 stanzas commentary by Chandrakirti, that he was explaining how the lower tenets say that unless things intrinsically exist, unless they're inherently existent, they don't exist at all. Okay, and I gave also Jeffrey Hopkins' translation of that from Final Exposition on page 93. Okay, so now Lama Tsongkhapa is going to, just as he did with the previous citation from the Basham by Chandrakirti, now Lama Tsongkhapa is going to explain what Chandrakirti meant here in his commentary to Aryadeva. So he says, therefore, being free from all extremes of existence, through understanding that nothing exists by virtue of its own essence. I think maybe you're getting to the point now where you can kind of read between the lines. You can your mind is thinking by virtue of its own essence means through understanding that nothing exists inherently, and being free of all the extremes of non-existence. The extremes of non-existence. That would be like the lower tenets thinking that things can't exist at all unless they're inherently existing and so forth. And being free of the extremes of non-existence, in that one can posit everything from cause and effect to the very facts of the world as possessing no intrinsic existence. This appears to be a distinctive interpretation of noble Nagarjuna's thought by the master Buddhapalita and the revered Chandrakirti. So distinguishing two types of existence and two types of non-existence is crucially important. Remember, previous paragraph, he had an expression, indispensable to, this understanding, the analogy of the mirror and other phenomena, indispensable to understanding the Madhyamaka view. Now he's saying distinguishing the two types of existence and the two types of non-existence is crucially important. Okay, so who can distinguish this? Okay, Nadine is volunteering.
Yes, volunteering. I was thinking the two types of existence probably are inherent existence or mere existence.
Okay.
And the two types of non-existence I thought might be not existing at all or not existing the way it appears. That's my thought, but I'm just guessing.
That's a good guess. Paul, what do you think? Did you follow what?
Yeah, I think I would agree with the first two about differentiating intrinsic existence from mere existence.
Right.
The two types of non-existence, though.
Well, by analogy, could we say utter non-existence and mere non-existence?
Sure.
Does Prasangika, even non-existence itself might be grasped by the mind as being,
So in inherent non-existence.
right. So perhaps those are the two types that are being mentioned there.
I would
So,
say
one.
I would say non-inherently existence.
Non-inherently
existence.
Say again.
Non-inherent existence.
Non-inherent existence.
Because
as a couple with what?
The proponent of with a completely non-existent. because the proponent of things would say that non-inherent existence is complete non-existence.
That's an example of non-existent, but there's other things that are non-existent, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's just an example of that. So this is crucially important. Yeah, Nadine, one second. This is crucially important. So these examples, this would be a good place to go back and check the example of the mirror, how that's talking about one set of conclusions one can draw from that analogy. And here, to understand this sort of final, final view of Nagarjuna, it comes in so many different texts that although phenomena appear to be inherently existent, they are not, yet they still exist on that conventional level. Nadine, what are you thinking?
Thank you very much, George. I think there is a passage in the Vajrakata Sutra about this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that, Subhuti? Because if those bodhisattva mahasattvas engage in discriminating phenomena, that itself would be of them grasping a self and grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Because even if they engage in discriminating phenomena as non-existent, that would be of them grasping a self, grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Why is that? Further, Subhuti, because a bodhisattva should not wrongly grasp phenomena nor grasp non-phenomena.
Yeah, not phenomena nor non-phenomena. So that, yeah, that's at the end of that was the connecting point to what we were talking, that long passage. Thank you for that. Yeah, there are many examples in the sutras as you read there. What did I want to say? Yeah, so the view of Nagarjuna is sort of like the gold standard. It's not a little bit corrupted in any way, as was explained later by Buddhapalita completely correctly, and by Chandrakirti completely correctly. By the way, in that passage that Nadine just quoted from the Vajracharika, when it refers to Subhuti, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva. I've mentioned this before in other contexts, especially when we taught the Heart Sutra, because that combination comes up in the Heart Sutra, comes up in the long Dharani of Avalokiteshvara also. Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva. What's the difference between a Bodhisattva and a Mahasattva, David, do you know? Good answer, okay. Yeah, there we go. Don?
I don't really know. I think one means great being and one means a mind of enlightenment.
Yeah, so Mahasattva, as you say, means great being, great sattva, Maha, like Mahayana. And Bodhisattva means a being aiming for Bodhi. That's one way of understanding it. So, Paul, can you differentiate between Bodhisattva and Mahasattva?
I literally had to write this up just the other day, and I'm trying to find it right now.
Oh.
But it is something along those lines. And I remember because I think Haribhadra is the one who actually gives the definition in his commentary on the Abhisamalamkara, if I can find it.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Okay. So, sorry. My thing is scrolling here. There we go. Right. So a bodhisattva is defined by Haribhadra as someone whose intentions, sattva, are directed towards the fulfillment of their own welfare, namely enlightenment. Whereas a mahasattva is defined by Haribhadra as someone whose mind, sattva, is directed toward the fulfillment of the great welfare, maha, of others, and hence is called a mahasattva.
Okay, so differentiating them between Rangdong and Shendong that the Bodhisattva is mainly aiming for Bodhi, but still for the welfare of sentient beings as the prerequisite cause, whereas Mahasattva is looking at the Bodhisattva from the point of view of that other factor, working for the benefit of sentient beings. So they are synonymous, but they have slightly different flavor when you say them. Just as Paul quoted there from Haribhadra. Remember Haribhadra was, what school was Haribhadra, Mikhail, do you remember?
Mm,
Is he Prasangika?
no, it's I would say Svatantrika, but I don't know if he's Yogacara or
Right. So I think
Tantrika.
generally we say Yogacara, I guess. So he was disciple of Bhava Viveka and so forth. Okay, so thank you for that. So let's read on a little further here. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa says that emptiness should be presented by the analogy of reflection is found in the following from the Meeting of Father and Son Sutra. So do you remember the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra? Nadine, do you know what is that talking about, that sutra?
I only know that it's not translated into English, unfortunately, yet. We are waiting for it.
Oh, right. 84,000 version says still in translation. So we mentioned several times before because we've had quotes from it. It's when the Buddha's father, Shakyamuni Buddha's father, who was the king, finally out of pride, he came to visit the Buddha. So there were certain situations that arose in that context. And it has a lot of explanation about emptiness, maybe the Buddha teaching his father in various ways and other individuals teaching for the benefit of the Buddha's father. So there's a verse in that says, just as a reflection of a form with no intrinsic existence appears in a clear mirror, so understand phenomena such as trees. Ay, ay, ay. So that's really interesting. Do you think that's correct translation? See phenomena such as trees, Paul?
Let's see, the Tibetan is Junpa. So I guess that could be translated as tree.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's literally, but Jumba is actually the Sanskrit word Duma, who is the king of the Kinaras, who is one of the, what do you call it? I want to say interrogator. What's the word I'm looking for?
Interlocutor.
Interlocutors in the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra. A lot of Tibetan lamas don't recognize that because they've only had quotes from the, and it's not, Duma doesn't appear all the time. Duma is the Sanskrit. It's just the name of the king of the Kinaras. Who are the Kinaras? Do you know, Richard? Anyone know?
They
Paul
have a horse head and something like that.
Yeah. What is it in Tibetan? Miyamchi, isn't it, Paul? So is it a man or what? Mi means man, human. Means or. Chi means what? What the heck is it? Is that a human? It's sort of like a horse with a human head or something like that. So some kind of creatures. So the king of the Kinaras was named Druma. So in Jimpa's translation, he translates it as such as trees, but there's no such as, it just says Jumpa. So one would say probably better from, say, just Thupten Jimpa's translation, just as a reflection of a form without intrinsic existence appears in a clean mirror, and I'll explain why I use clean rather than clear, just as that, so in that way, understand phenomena or So in that way, Druma, talking to Druma, the king of the Kinaras, understand phenomena other than forms and so forth. Does that quotation make sense? What do you think, Mikhail? You looked like you had a doubt.
Yeah, I don't understand why putting Druma here is better in regarding the meaning.
Yeah, but
Instead of trees.
in the context, if you read the verses of the meeting of the Father and Son, he's actually conversing at some points with the king of the Kinaras, whose given name is Druma, and it comes many places, and not being aware of that, some Tibetan lamas, even just knowing these quotations, think it's referring to tree, as Thupten Jinpa had translated it here.
So it's not saying, so understand phenomena as trees, but he's talking to Druma. Druma understand phenomena.
You should understand all phenomena in the same way that you understand the reflection, what would I say? Yeah, in the reflection in a clean mirror. So at this point, when Geshe Zopa was giving transmission of this, he said that he instead of saying clear mirror, Melong Shindu Yongdak, completely clean. So what Geshe was saying is, if you get a mirror and you're using it for really some good particular inspection, you want to clean it off, right? Or maybe clean off the lens of your camera or something from dust or smudges, or when you were eating something or you sneezed and some particles came on the mirror. That happens in my bathroom when I brush my teeth. Sometimes the toothpaste goes on the mirror, right? So you want to have a completely clean mirror. Just as in a very clean mirror, reflections which lack inherent existence appear. Likewise, Druma, Joan has this correct, understand phenomena. Okay, so this is talking to the interlocutor, Druma. So Druma is not the father, it's not Buddha's father, it's just someone who's enters into that. Making sense? Okay, so then this section ends with this final little long sentence. That is, so this is Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on that quotation from the meeting of the Father and Son. That is, one should understand the other analogies of falsehood, how these analogies and their reference are to be correlated along the same lines as this example of the mirror image. So he's just giving a scriptural reference to, the Buddha actually said that's what you should do. You should consider these things in the same way you consider reflections in a mirror. So that's your homework, to think about that. Okay. So now we come to another new outline. Chimpa translates, the merits of negating intrinsic arising on both levels of the two truths. So in the text, in the Tibetan text itself, it doesn't say that, it just says ngapa la ni. Ngapa la ni. What does that mean? Anyone know Tibetan? Do you know, Stephen, have you learned Tibetan enough? Ngapa means what? The fifth. Nga means five. Ngapa means fifth. Ngapa la ni, ni means two. So that means there are two outlines to the fifth. So if you're reading the Tibetan, you don't get the advantage of Chimpa inserting what Ngapa refers to. So there were a bunch of outlines earlier. The fifth of those outlines we're on now. And at that point, it gave the name, the merits of negating inherent arising, inherent production, on both levels of the two truths. That's what we're actually talking about now. So this has two parts. The merit of more readily avoiding the views of eternalism and nihilism, or nihilism. Which is correct? Nihilism or nihilism? David, are you much of a linguist?
I think I've seen that both of them are correct.
Yeah. Diana, you're our resident linguist. Maybe she's lost connection. Okay.
I would say both are acceptable. Nihilism is used more in professional contexts.
Nihilism. Okay, there we go. So this has two parts: the merit of more readily avoiding the views of eternalism and nihilism, and the merit of how cause and effect become most tenable. Okay. So the first of those, the merit of more readily avoiding the views of eternalism and nihilism. So what are we talking about? Negating intrinsic production or inherent production on both levels of the two truths. So who let's say, does Svatantrika accept that there's no inherent production on the ultimate level? Sean?
I would think so.
So they say, although inherent existence exists conventionally, it doesn't exist ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the merit of more readily avoiding the views of eternalism and nihilism. So let's read this verse, 638. Since no intrinsic nature exists in either of the two truths, phenomena are neither eternal nor annihilated. So either of the two truths, there's no intrinsic nature in either of the two truths. That means conventional truth, there is no intrinsic existence, no inherent existence, but the Svatantrikas say there is there. They say that on the conventional level, on that level of truth, conventional truth, there is inherent existence. But here it says, since intrinsic inherent existence does not exist in either of the two truths. So for Prasangika, there's no inherent existence on the conventional level, in conventional truth, and on the ultimate level, there's no intrinsic existence. And Svatantrika would say that also. They would say on the ultimate, there's no inherent existence. Making sense? FPMT translation says, even with respect to the two truths, there is no inherent existence. Therefore, they are not permanent. They are also not annihilated. She takes annihilated. How do you like to translate those, Paul?
Sorry, I'm trying to find the Tibetan. Neither eternal nor annihilated. Dakpa Mayin Chebang Min. Permanent nor Cheba. Yeah, I guess annihilated.
So takpa sometimes means permanent, like what we're familiar with mitakpa, impermanent, right? Takpa means permanent, but takpa also means eternal. So when we talk about the extremes, sometimes they talk about the extreme of permanence, but or maybe the extreme of eternalism, as opposed to the extreme of nihilism. Here it says annihilated. Okay, so let's see what the commentary to that is. So that was 638 C and D from the karikas, the Majjhimaka karikas. So Lama Tsongkhapa, his commentary starts, like reflections, all things are empty of intrinsic existence. And since no intrinsic nature exists equally in either of the two truths, so that's Prasangika position. There's no intrinsic existence anywhere. So all phenomena are either conventional, are ultimate truths or conventional truths. So there's no intrinsic existence in either of those spheres, that of the ultimate and that of the conventional. Phenomena such as form do not intrinsically exist. There are no inherently existent forms and so forth. They are neither eternal nor annihilated. And then he gives some explanation of what annihilation means here. Annihilation, quote unquote, here refers to the sense explained in the line. So at the time of the sprout, there is no extinction of the sprout.
Of the seed.
Oh, sorry, no extinction of the seed. Yeah. So he's saying, let's see, there must say, chepaang minte. So what was Lama Tsongkhapa saying here? Phenomena such as form do not intrinsically exist. They are neither eternal nor annihilated. Annihilation here refers to the sense explained in the line, so at the time of the sprout, there is no extinction of the seed. So that note at the end there, 513, says, this is a reference to verse 633c. And then it gives the page in the text to see Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary about that. So here, yeah, I don't have Venerable Jones. How does she translate that here? Perfectly clean mirror. Okay, we're here. Okay. I can't find it immediately. Anyway, so like reflections, all things are empty of intrinsic existence. And since no intrinsic nature exists in either of the truths in the same way, equally, it's not like there's a little existing in the conventional level, but none on the ultimate level. Not like that. They're equally non-existent on both levels of truth. Phenomena such as forms do not intrinsically exist. They do not inherently exist because they don't exist on the conventional or the ultimate level. They are neither eternal nor annihilated. And annihilation here refers to the sense explained in the line. So at the time of the sprout, there is no extension of the seed. And I just mentioned, okay, so that was earlier reference in Lama Tsongkhapa's text. Okay, so now Lama Tsongkhapa quotes fundamental wisdom again. Before I go, jump, Mikhail.
Yeah, I had troubles understanding this, specifically the annihilation. And I, looking at the page in the note, I came to this understanding. Please tell me if that's correct or not. So if there were any kind of inherent existence, then a permanent phenomena would be eternal. That would be the eternalism. And impermanent phenomena would annihilate as soon as they change.
If they were inherently existent.
If there was any inherent existence, inherent nature, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could say that. There are so many different ways of looking at it, but and also when it's talking about what is it talking about? Eternalism and yeah, eternal or annihilated. So one of them is talking about the wrong view that phenomena exist in the way that they appear truly, and annihilated refers to not existing at all. Okay, so now it's quoting a verse in Fundamental Wisdom, which I don't have the number of, but it says, maybe that's in the note here, 514. That note says, yeah, chapter 15, verse 11. If you happen to like to look for the original source, chapter 15, verse 11. So in that verse, it says, as they assert what existed before is now no more, so it's disappeared, they fall, therefore, into annihilationism. Oh. Dene chepa telwargur. So they fall into chepa, so this annihilation, so that it doesn't exist at all. What was there before doesn't exist. So Lama Tsongkhapa explains that, fortunately. He says, Nagarjuna is stating here that if having asserted intrinsic existence of things, one accepts that something that existed previously later becomes non-existent, or is impermanent in the sense of having disintegrated, this would constitute an annihilationist view. I think this is what Paul was trying to say before. For if one holds that things exist intrinsically, if one holds inherent existence as being true, Nagarjuna says that whether one asserts a thing to be permanent or impermanent, this would constitute either an eternalist or nihilist view. Makes sense? Let's read what Venerable Jones said here. This is on page 152 in her translation. As a result, or due to asserting inherently existent things, as a result of, asserting that, if it is asserted either that, quote, one, things existed before, later do not exist. Does that ever happen? Things that exist before no longer exist? What's an example of that?
A rainbow.
Yeah, okay. How about dropping the peanut butter jar on the floor? Was previously a peanut butter jar, now it's not. It's a big mass of peanut butter in glass on your floor. The peanut butter jar no longer exists. So if you assert inherent existence, if you assert that things that existed before later do not exist, so that inherently existent peanut butter jar later does not exist, that would be an extreme of what? Annihilationism, right? Nihilism. It doesn't exist at all, right? Or two, that they are impermanent phenomena. If you assert that they are impermanent phenomena which have disintegrated, it is a view of annihilation in either of those cases, right? Even if you talk about impermanent phenomena means every moment they're changing. The previous moment, upon the disintegration of the previous moment, the next moment appears of the continuum. And then that changes into the next moment and so forth and so on. So if you were to assert inherent existence, that phenomena were inherently existent, could that take place? Could there be a continuum like that? Why not, Sean?
Because
You
it
see-
has to always exist. If it existed at the beginning, it has to always exist.
Or, yeah, that's true. Another way of saying is if it did change,
It wouldn't be inherently existing.
it would become non-existent for them. If there was, it's sort of like contradictory to keep in mind because it's not, they don't accept that that's possible. If it were impermanent, the second instant when it changed, it would no longer be inherently existent, so it would no longer exist. It's a little hard to get the mind around what it's trying to say. This is because even though when things are asserted to be inherently existent, they are asserted to be either permanent or impermanent, right? All phenomena are either permanent or impermanent, David? Is there a third possibility?
No.
You're right on with very succinct answers today.
That's the best I can do.
Yeah. Okay. So all phenomena, so it is not talking about some subset of phenomena. It's talking about all phenomena here. They are asserted to be either permanent or impermanent. They are said to be views that fall into the extremes of permanence and annihilation. Fundamental wisdom says, the fundamental wisdom by Nagarjuna, says that just as emanations by the teacher emanate, and those emanations also emanate others, likewise the agent, the action, and that produced by them are similar to those. Is that in Jimpa's translation? Oh yeah. So in Jimpa's translation on the next paragraph, it says, at this point in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the passage from Fundamental Wisdom, where Nagarjuna states that the agent and the acts done are like when the Buddha manifests one emanation, who in turn manifests another emanation. And his note 515 there, I've forgotten. He's just giving the page number of that. Okay. Thus, Chandrakirti writes, Nagarjuna has shown how things with no intrinsic existence. So Chandrakirti is saying this. Nagarjuna has shown how things with no intrinsic existence do arise, are produced from no intrinsic existence, from no inherent existence. So non-inherently existent things can give rise to other non-inherently existing things. That's what we've come to understand. Chandrakirti's point is that when every function is posited in a context of no intrinsic existence, every function, so the agent, the act, that which is acted upon, when every function is posited in the context of no intrinsic existence, there is no danger of falling into nihilism. You always have the mere production and so forth. So we'll start here next time. We'll go over this paragraph. This is quite this is quite useful. Let's see how I can. Okay, I can't get it there. So when we talk about where does it say here? I think in Venerable Jones' translation, when it said, fundamental wisdom says that just as emanations by the teacher, so the teacher here, Tomba, means the Buddha, just when the Buddha emanated things, and those things emanate other things, right? So the Buddha may have emanated, who did he emanate? Anyone that was sometimes said to be emanation of the Buddha? Maybe the Bodhisattva Vajrapani. You know, one sense there is a Bodhisattva Vajrapani with his own pure land and tantric deity and everything. But some of the Bodhisattvas were said to be emanations of the Buddha. Maybe Shariputra or Mahamoggallana. So they themselves, even though they're emanations, they can emanate other disciples around them, and those can emanate others and so forth. All of this still functions, even though they're not inherently existent. Fundamental wisdom says that just as emanations by the teacher emanate, and those emanations also emanate others, likewise, also agent, action, and that produced from them are similar to those. They are all, if they're dependent upon one another, they don't have to be inherently existent. They have that kind of relationship. Okay, what do you think? Making sense? Mikhail, what did you think today? You bemused or?
Well, I think it needs revision, but it's okay, I think.
Okay, okay. What do you think, David?
I think it makes sense. This is the introduction to the middle way here, right? You're like, don't fall on either side.
Right, okay. So before we end, any questions? Jeremy, you okay?
Yes, fine. Thank you, Venerable George.
Okay. So just to keep in mind, there is a war going on right now between Pakistan and India, which is quite frightening because both are nuclear countries, both have the nuclear weapons. And to make, so as we make dedications and prayers to also to pray for that to be calm and for the individuals, civilians in those two countries close to the fighting, that they are not engulfed unwittingly, being blown up by these forces.
I think there was a ceasefire this morning.
Yeah, whether that holds or not. So, Richard, if you'd like to put up the dedication prayers, some of them you know pretty well. Due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha, or more literally, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that very same state. So to lead them into that same state of omniscience. And then this prayer that we can think of as a dedication, due to these virtues, may the supreme jewel bodhicitta, the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow. So it means not only in my own mind, but in the mind streams of others as a result of these merits. May that the bodhicitta that has not arisen in my and others' minds, may it arise and grow. So that's a prayer that others also develop bodhicitta besides ourselves. And that which has arisen in my mind, in the mind of others, say the bodhisattvas has already arisen, may that not diminish, but increase more and more. Then for the quick return, so Lama Zopa Rinpoche apparently has returned. We've mentioned the Dalai Lama has verified that he is born in, I think, Nepal, but we haven't seen his young face, smiling face yet. So the prayer now has that that sense. Peerless teacher means the Buddha, an assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all objects of refuge of the infinite realms. So there are other objects of refuge in other Buddha realms and so forth. All of them were requesting them, please now bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience throughout that, the patience that is never discouraged. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche had the distinguishing characteristic of never being, discouraged when all of the difficulties involved in explaining the Dharma and in practicing the Dharma. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. You who are the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and for the welfare of mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. At this I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of the bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, so that means mind generation is a synonym of bodhicitta, mind generation of the children of the victorious ones, which means the bodhisattvas. Due to these truths, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. Then finally, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, or engaging skillfully, moved by mercy, love, and compassion, illuminating spiritual friends, I make this request. Please live long and stable lives. Because you are my eyes and the eyes for all other sentient beings to understand the infinite scriptures and so forth. Okay, so I'm glad to see some of you have traveled back. I just mentioned again, Suvash is in Kolkata. I can't remember the exact Hindi translation now, which used to be called Calcutta. So he's coming back via Singapore next week, so he won't fly over the dangerous zone. Diana is back from Italy, not having to fly over any zones there, and we're still praying for Nadine's friend Shani, who's in Islamabad. His family is closer to the war zone, that everything works out safely for them. So hope to see some of you on Monday for discussion group. Certainly here next week. I will bid adieu. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you,
Thank you
Venerable
so
George.
much.